It's been over a year since my last full houseplant tour, so I think it's time for another one. In this time, I've made a lot of changes and I have actually drastically downsized, so I have far fewer plants than I have in previous years, but I feel so much better about my collection. I've also done a huge house rearrange, and so things are in very different spots than they were before. So I'm very excited to show you all of my plants in 2026. Before we get into that though, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanty content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanty journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you are not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you returning. Now let's head into the living room because I've made some pretty big changes in there and I want to show you them first. This is one of the rooms that's changed the most in my big rearrange. One of the biggest changes is that Joe's desk now lives in this room, but it still has hella plants on it, so let's check those out first. This first guy here, one of my absolute favorite plants, is my Philodendron Melanonii, and I've had this one for eons. It's one of my only self-heading philodendrons. It's kind of the only one I have space for in my home because it takes up so much space. Like, it just spreads itself out and it's got like quite a big footprint. And so this is kind of the only place that it can exist because otherwise it just gets in the way. This one's just a hard one to figure out because I don't have enough space in my home to like really give it what it deserves. It does flower though fairly regularly. It's flowered the past couple of years and I currently have 2 blooms on it that I've opened and closed at this point and I could probably cut off, but it's a fun time if nothing else. This desk has kind of become an alocasia zone because this is the only place that all of these sort of big alocasias can fit. The first one is my alocasia poly, this huge thing here. This is one of my very first plants, which is kind of crazy. It's gone through so much. It was down to 1 leaf at one point, and I've been able to grow it back from that as well as from corms. This is the first alocasia I ever propped corms from, and I'm just obsessed with this big, beautiful dark leaves with the like contrast veination in there. There's been times when I've had it in sort of dark corners and it's still been cool. These days, this one and all of the rest of the plants on the desk are getting light from these 2 Claria Grow Gang bulbs, which are on just in the evening time, and they seem to really work well for these plants here. This next one is the Alocasia heterophylla Dragon's Breath, and oh my goodness, I love the shape of these leaves so much. They really remind me of dragon heads. I totally understand where that's coming from. This one is really regularly putting out new leaves for me, and it's a little bit sprawly right now, but I don't mind it too much. This next one is one of my newer alocasias. It's one that Claire picked out for me when we were plant shopping for each other. It is the Alocasia tigrina, which it's so cool. It's one of the like big long stemmed alocasias, and I'm obsessed with these like really angular triangle leaves and the stripy stems, and it's just been a very happy camper for me, putting out new growth fairly regularly. I should also say that I keep all of my alocasias in semi-hydro substrate, and that's the only way I've been able to keep up with their higher watering needs, but they all seem to really like it, and this one hasn't cycled at all for me since I've had it. The only plant in this space that's not an alocasia is this guy. This is a Dracaena goldiana, which I feel is kind of like the least Dracaena looking Dracaena that I've ever seen. I feel like its leaves don't really give normal Dracaena vibes. I love this sort of snaky camo pattern on them, and like the way it grows, it's so beautiful. This is definitely one that looks best from the top. From the side, it kind of looks a little bit sparse, but when it's getting good light from the top, you can really see the magnificence that this plant holds. It's also one that I rarely think about because Dracaena are just so easy. I don't need to worry about it at all. The last one on the desk is not my best alocasia. This is my Alocasia Regal Shield, and it is one that I've just generally struggled with for a while. Also, it does have a big burn mark from where it touched the grow light the other day. This is a sit-stand desk, and it was up the other day when the grow lights turned on, and it burnt it a little bit, unfortunately. But I think it is enjoying having slightly higher light than it did previously, and it is putting out new growth in there at the minute, so hopefully I will get some slightly more maybe not compact, but like better leaf to stem ratio on it soon. And then probably my biggest plant, this is my bird of paradise sitting in the corner here. And yes, it does touch the ceiling. I can't believe how much this one has grown since I got it. When we moved into this flat about 4 years ago, it was maybe a meter tall, and since then it has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And this is kind of the only place that it currently fits because it is so tall and big. It did used to live in my southwest facing window, and I think it liked the amount of light that it was getting. It would get the most amount of natural light of any plant. I've never had it under a grow light or anything, but since it got so big and I can't keep it in that corner anymore, I've had to move it further away, kind of in the furthest spot from a window, and it is getting some grow light. This is not the best spot for it in my home, but again, when they get so big, you kind of just have to put them where they fit. Just 3 things living on my TV stand. The first one in this cloche, it's not looking its very best. This is my begonia baramensis, and in general, I found that begonias, especially rhizomaceous begonias, do not do well with change. And I recently took this one out of this little terrarium, which it was doing very well in and actually outgrew. And then I moved it into this pot under the cloche, which you'd think would be absolutely fine because it's like same conditions. No, it really didn't like that and decided to drop all but one of its leaves, which actually had a huge brown spot on the side, but I have since removed that. It is, however, putting out a new leaf in there, which is super exciting. It means it's bouncing back. And so while these begonias don't like change, if you give them time and patience and you don't mind them looking a little bit raggedy for a little while, they will eventually bounce back. Most of the time. I'm just being patient with this one. None of these plants here have grow lights on them. They're just getting medium at a stretch from the southwest facing window that they're about 2 meters away from. So they're just getting what they can. I'm sure it would bounce back faster if I put it underneath a grow light or something, but you know, it's all good. I don't mind all that much. This guy here, I fully used to disguise these cables. This is my Sansevieria Mikado. And Joe and I actually got this on our second date when we went to IKEA. This one has just been growing in his care originally since, where it wasn't doing its best, let's be honest. And then since we moved in and I started taking care of it, it has grown like crazy, and I fully use it to disguise the cords there because it kind of just blends in with that and makes it look like we don't have cords hanging from our TV. The last one on here is again a rhizomaceous begonia that freaked the F out when I popped it in here. So this is my begonia Darth Vaderiana green spot, which is another one that Claire got for me in our shopping for each other video, but they are so sensitive. And as soon as I put it into the terrarium, it dropped all of its leaves, and it is since coming back. You can see there is new growth in there, even some small pieces coming out. So it is bouncing back, but it is taking its sweet time here. Before we make our way into the cabinet, I want to talk about a couple of plants on and around it. The first one being my gigantic Manjula pothos here. I put this thing on a moss pole ages ago and it sized up massively. And there was a period where I neglected the moss pole maintenance on this one, and unfortunately it did get a little bit smaller again for a while, but I'm trying to combat that now and get better with my moss poles, try and keep them moist and topped up and stuff. And I know it's rooting back into the pole again, and it's actually starting to bounce back and size up again too. First one on top of the cabinet, I actually have 4 plants that live up there. This one is my Pellionia pulchra, which I got, oh my goodness, probably in like 2020 in a plant swap as like the tiniest little cutting. And I grew it just in moss for the longest time. I did finally put it into soil several years in, and it's been just growing in years since. But every single one of these branches has come from just the one originally, and I've just chopped and propped it, and I've shared this one loads. For the longest time, you wouldn't see it in any sort of plant shops, and so whenever I went to a swap or anything, I would like to bring this along to share the love. And I just love these dark black, almost watermelon-y looking leaves. I know some people do grow these in terrariums, but I've always found mine perfectly happy outside of terrarium conditions. It's just living its best life on the top of my Milsbo, and it really never complains. I don't even water it that often. I should probably water it more often, but I don't. Also on the top up here, I have my peace lily, and I don't have a normal peace lily. I just have the diamond variegated one. Oh my gosh, it's gotten so big. Because it lives on the top of something, I never really noticed how big it's getting, but I love this one so, so much. I don't even ever try and get it to flower because I'm not in the peace lily game for the flowers. That's not my vibe personally, but I just love the sort of cool foliage, and these sort of textured leaves are quite fun with the variegation in them. I've of course got this one in semi-hydro because these guys are thirsty, moisture-loving plants, and so anything I could possibly do to make my life easier in the watering department, I will, and semi-hydro does that for me here. This is probably my most like fancy pants plant. It is my Philodendron ilsamanii, and I got this one as just a single leaf cutting. This was the only leaf it had on it, and it was a mid cut. So this whole bit of growth over here had to grow itself out from the start. And you can see the sort of size up on each of these leaves, this one being the newest. And it is nearly the size of the original. I feel like the next leaf will be the leaf on this that comes back to original size. This one is really fun because when the leaves emerge, they come out pink, which if you know me at all, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of pink plants, but the pinkness fades away, which I like it. I like it then because it's only temporary, and it fades away to this lovely sort of cream color. So it's fun to watch this one grow. And it's actually the only plant I'm growing in sphagnum. I've got it in a dirty sphagnum mix, which is sphagnum, charcoal or biochar, perlite, and bark. And so it's just in a dirty mix, and I've popped it on a moss pole. All of that bit is the dirty mix, and then from there I just got lazy and put normal sphagnum moss in. But so far it has loved being on the pole. That's what's allowed it to size up and get bigger. It's also right in front of a Sansi grow light. I have a lamp with that bulb pointing up at the top of my cabinet, and I think this one has liked having that little bit of extra light because otherwise it's too high up and too pulled back from a window to get enough light on its own. And then the last one I have up there is my spider plant, which is actually kind of huge. And if you follow me for a while, you know that spider plants are the bane of my existence, my absolute nemesis plant. I have never been able to keep one alive until recently when I started using it with the Willow Smart Plant Sensor in here. And I follow this thing's directions to a T, and I feel like this plant is the perfect time to talk about the Willow plant sensors in a bit more detail because they are the ones that challenged me to try the spider plant again. So basically you stick one of the sensors in your plant's soil, and from there it's constantly measuring your soil's moisture as well as the light, humidity, and temperature of the surrounding area. And it's taking all of that data and sending it straight to your phone, where the app will tell you whether or not the plant needs more water or to be put in a brighter spot or for the temperature to be raised or something. And so it's the perfect device to help me with this plant that I have never been able to take care of in the past. And so far what it's taught me is that the spider plants are way thirstier than I thought they would be. I'm having to water this one quite frequently, and I wouldn't be doing that unless the Willow sensor told me to do so. So this one probably wouldn't still be growing if I didn't have the Willow sensor in there. So if you want to try the Willow Smart Plant Sensors for yourself, head to the link in my description, and don't forget to use my discount code for 10% off your orders. Your plants will thank you. I know my spider plant has. Heading into my Millswell cabinet, this is where I keep a lot of my smaller plants and ones with higher care needs because the cabinet holds in heat and humidity, and I have grow lights in here. I will preface this by saying I am planning on changing the grow lights in here very, very soon. I know that they are not necessarily the brightest things. They are just fluorescent bulbs that I got like back in the beginning of my plant journey, and they do still work, so I've been hesitant to change them. They've just not necessarily been as bright as they possibly could be. So be warned, some of the plants in here are a little bit on the leggy side. I'm just gonna disclaim that in advance. So getting straight in here, this first one is the Ardisia gigantifolia. And this is one that I had never seen until November time when I was plant shopping for Claire. We funnily enough both ended up getting this plant for each other because both of us thought it was super cool and had never heard of it. And I am just obsessed with these sort of dark velvety leaves and the contrast veination, and even the sides of these leaves, they kind of look almost serrated or spiky, and it is really fun. So far, this plant hasn't been that difficult, but like I said, it's in sort of greenhouse conditions, and so it is getting that little bit of extra care. It has grown a little bit for me. I think this leaf is new, but you know, maybe it's not living its best life. I'm still working out the kinks with this one. This fun thing is a begonia sugogo. It is a rhizomaceous begonia that I have in no drainage, semi-hydro, and it is such a cool one. It's a hybrid begonia of a goegoensis and something that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is really cool. It's got these fun fuzzy stems and these really round sort of gothic leaves that I think are so pretty. It is a bit of a slow grower so far in my home. I think I got it in November time as props from Claire, and so it's taken a minute to get to this point, but I think this leaf and this leaf are new for me since I've had it, so we are picking up the pace a little bit. This one doesn't necessarily look its best, but it is adjusting. This is my begonia bipinnatifida. It is so hard to show on camera because the leaves on it are so like fingery and wispy. And this one was for ages living in my pond box until I dismantled it recently. Like I've said about begonias, they do not like change. Even though this one is a cane begonia, this one really didn't like the drop in humidity from 100% and decided to drop some of its leaves as it got some crispy bits just on here. But I think it is starting to bounce back. That green leaf at the top there looks like it is a new one, so I'm hoping that it will bounce back a little bit further. In the back corner here, we have one of my black alocasias, the Alocasia Black Magic. And oh my goodness, look how beautifully dark these leaves are. They're just so goth. This one, it has not been the easiest alocasia for me. You've seen some of the other alocasias I have in my collection. I can grow alocasia as well. This one has not been the easiest and has definitely gotten leggy for me, and it's putting out a new leaf now, which is exciting. It's going in the right direction, but I'm not sure it's necessarily happy in my care. Here we have another alocasia, my Alocasia Silver Dragon, and look at that most beautiful big new leaf it has given me. Oh my goodness, I'm obsessed with this plant, and also the backs of these leaves. The veins look like they have blood in them. It is so freaking cool. I love this one so much, even though it does kind of look like a chaotic leggy mess. I'm obsessed with it, and it just makes me really happy. This is my Alocasia Black Velvet, and this one's also a little bit of a leggy mess. I don't mind. I am slowly rehabilitating this one. For ages, it was growing amazingly for me, and then suddenly it just wanted to kick the bucket, and I had to start it over from scratch. The tall ones you see are ones that I've grown from corms from a friend, but these guys down here at the bottom, the nice short little ones that are nice and compact, those ones are from my original plant, and it does look like I have a new leaf coming in there right now, which is super exciting. It's nice that this one is bouncing back because I was afraid that I had lost my original mother plant completely. I do have some anthuriums in here, which I'm not going to go into heavy detail with. I'll just give you sort of updates because I did an anthurium ranking video fairly recently. This is a crazy hybrid anthurium, the Anthurium Rosarain. Obviously, I'll put on the screen what it could possibly be a hybrid of, but it was one given to me by a follower. And then I've also got my big Queen of Hearts living in the cabinet. This is the newest leaf on it. Again, it's leggy, but we're getting there. It does, however, look like it is properly putting out a new leaf now, which is super exciting. So I'm hoping that that one doesn't grow in as leggy as soon as I change the sort of lights in this cabinet, which will be very soon, so keep an eye out for that. But who doesn't love a dark goth black heart-shaped plant? Like, what's not to love about it? And then I've got a couple smaller things in the back here. This little Hoya is the Hoya Huskeliana Inner Variegated. I really rarely ever do anything to this plant, and it has just grown phenomenally for me. This grew from a single cutting, and now it has at least 3 stems in there, which I do think is kind of crazy. But I love these little inner variegated leaves. This one probably doesn't need to live in cabinet conditions, but it seems perfectly happy here, so why move it? This guy is a Scindapsus tricolor that I actually stole-ish from Claire. She didn't want it anymore, and so I kind of took it and rescued it. It wasn't growing the best in her condition. It had like a very long runner with not much on it. I just chopped that off, and now it is putting out some new growth in there, which is exciting. I feel like we are getting towards success with it, but I just love Scindapsus so much. These tricolor leaves are really cool, and I can't wait to show you in my bedroom my big pot of like mixed Scindapsus uncommon plants. I do have a propagation in here as well, but I'm not really going to talk about it much. It is the variegated Syngonium chiapense, which has like a dark leaf and then a light leaf. It is rooting really well, and I will eventually add this into my other plant, which I'll talk about when we get into the bedroom. So that's it for the top shelf. Let's move on down to the bottom. This bit is a lot more chaotic. I do have some shelves in the back here which have some Barina grow lights on, which have helped the sort of smaller plants in here, because this really wasn't providing enough light for all of these sort of things to get enough. But now that I've installed those, it has helped a little bit. Like I said, I am gonna do a big change out soon, but let's go through the things I've got in here. First off, we've got a couple of Hoyas. This is my Hoya rotundiflora. It is a really cool, weird, kind of globby Hoya. I don't know why it feels globby to me, but it does. I think I got this at the plant swap in October last year as a prop, and so far it is growing well for me. Also got my outer variegated Hoya polyneura in here, which I don't think this one needs to be living in the cabinet. It doesn't need to be living in quite as bright of light as it is, because you can tell the like green color on the leaves is looking a little bit bleached. I did have it there because originally I just got a single cutting of the plant, and I wanted to make sure that it was getting enough to sustain itself. Since then, that one has grown really well for me, and I have gotten more cuttings from a friend, and I was able to fill out the pot a little bit. I do think I want to move it outside of the cabinet, but it makes me nervous as well because I just really want this one to succeed. I don't exactly remember what this anthurium is. It is some sort of hybrid, so I'll put it on the screen, but I do need to take this leaf off because it's obviously not very happy. This one, the newer one though, is doing just fine. And then we have this, which is something that I love so much. This is my variegated Thanksgiving cactus, which I grew from a single cutting, and it took ages for this one to prop and grow, and finally it has gotten to the point where it looks like a legit plant. Yes, I know that I do have a big chunk of normal green in here, and it does hide the bits of variegation a little bit, but I've also got really big chunks of pretty much pure white, which is, I think, kind of cool. I don't really understand how these bits are still growing, like giving full ghost leaves. I suppose because different parts of the plant are more green, they have the chlorophyll enough to sustain life, but they literally just keep popping out leaf after leaf after leaf that's pure white. My favorite bits though are definitely the ones that are more on the mixed side. A couple more Hoyas in here, which definitely don't need to live in here, but you know, they do, so we're just gonna vibe with it. This guy is my Hoya Nova Ghost, and oh my goodness, it is the most beautiful silvery one, and it has grown hella tendrils for me as well, which I do just cut off. I know you're not supposed to do that, but you know, they're my plants and I can do what I want with them. It does just encourage it to branch out a little bit more. You can see it's got some new growth coming in there now. And then this guy is my sun-stressed Hoya Wilbur Graves. You can see the sun stress on this leaf is turning it a sort of pinky purple color, which is fun. Like I said, this one definitely doesn't need to be living in the cabinet, but I just leave it here because this is the best space I currently have for it. I do think it is reverting on this little bit. Doesn't really have any sort of variegation, I want it to have this sort of beautiful spotty variegation. That's the kind of variegation that you want out of a Wilburgraves, in my opinion. So I think it might be because it's getting a little bit too much light, because that can happen with your Hoyas. If they're getting too much light and going too sun stressed, it can cause the variegation to like lower and then even disappear. Maybe before I do the ones on the lower shelf, I'll do the ones in front so I can pull them out and you can actually see how the ones on the middle shelf are growing. This guy is an Anthurium hybrid, and this leaf is actually starting to harden off at this point, which is really good. Unfortunately, it did get like abrasions, which kind of sucks, but I'm sure it'll be fine. This little guy here is my Anthurium Ace of Spades. Look how cool that is. It's really exciting. This is its newest leaf and it's growing really well and pretty chill for me. This guy is a mixed pot of Alocasia macrorrhiza variegated and Alocasia odora batik. I can never remember which one's which. I do have it written down somewhere, so I'll pop it on the screen which one is which. They do have different stems in there. This one's a little bit more pinky, and then these ones are like more green, but they have very, very similar leaf styles and structure, and so I feel like they look really nice in this pot altogether. Yes, it is extremely leggy. Yes, it is, because the grow lights weren't bright enough. So many big alocasias in here. Okay, so this is my Alocasia Green Unicorn, and it's actually the first hybrid alocasia that I knew was a hybrid, because like the Alocasia poly is a hybrid alocasia, if you didn't know. Fun fact. This is the first hybrid alocasia I got that I knew from the start was a hybrid, and it's a hybrid of an Aslanii and a dragon scale. It's kind of got such a mix between the sort of veination of a dragon scale, but the like texture of an Aslanii, and it's got the redness in the back of the leaves, which is a very Aslanii thing. And so far it's grown really, really well for me. It has gotten quite big, bigger than I would have expected based off of the parentage plants, but I'm really happy with it. My single leaf, really scrawny looking batwing. How fun and cool is that? I would love if this thing would grow more than one leaf. I feel like, similar to the stingray, which I'll get to in a second, it would just look so nice if it was a fuller plant, because it's so cool and weird. But you know, it's just one leaf, and there's nothing I can do about that at this current present moment. Another mixed pot. This is my variegated dragon scale mixed pot. It is a combo of the mint variegated one and the normal sort of albo-y sectoral variegated one. And it's just a really cool combo. I feel like they're so similar that I really like the vibe together. And oh my goodness, again, with these like back of the leaf blood red veins. This guy, oh my goodness, it's doing so well. It's got a new leaf on it. So this is my Anthurium Regal, which I'll talk about a little bit more in my bedroom, the history sort of it. But this is the top cutting, and oh my gosh, look at the new leaf that's coming in. It's literally perfect. The last leaf was also really nice, but unfortunately it did tear in quite a few places. It's not looking amazing, but I'm hoping that I can get this one to stay really nice in here. I've just got this one propagating in perlite, and it's definitely rooted in here, and it's definitely time to go into its like mother plant. I was just waiting for this leaf to grow out. So once this one fully hardens off, which it's nowhere near yet, then I'll be able to put it in with its mom. Here we have some Alocasia michelitziana variegated and non-variegated corms. I used to have a massive plant of this one, and I decided to start it over fresh from corms and get rid of that one as part of my downsize, which I do think really helped, and I'm enjoying it so much. The corms on this were huge and extremely fast to sprout. It's just such a prolific grower, and I love the sort of variegated, unvariegated combo in here. It just looks so nice, and I'm really excited to watch this grow up into a big plant again. This is my Alocasia bisma, and oh, this thing has put me through the ringer twice in its life. Twice it has died back to nothing, to a stump. and I've had to revive it, but it's always come back. And so it's a hardy one. It's somehow weak and hardy at the same time. And now, this time, it actually popped out 2 growth points, which is very exciting. And it looks like it's putting out 2 new leaves at the same time. So again, that's very exciting. This one has kind of like dark silver blue leathery leaves. I don't know if this is a true bisma or not, because I have seen other people's bismas that don't exactly look the same. I think a lot of similar looking alocasias were called bismas when they weren't necessarily bismas. So I don't know if this one is a true bisma, but I'm gonna call it that because that's what it was labeled when it originally joined my collection. Got some baby Anthurium crystallinum red seedlings that are popping up. You can see very, very faintly in there. There's a bit of red in the veination. I'm hoping these get the proper red genes. Don't know if they will or not, but only time will tell with them. And then the last one on the bottom before we get to this shelf here is my Aglaonema pictum tricolor, which is doing so well in semi-hydro, no drainage. A lot of people, when I said I wanted this one originally because it was a wish list plant for me, said that this one was a super finicky, thirsty plant. And since I put it in semi-hydro, pretty much straight away when I got it, I've not noticed it having any problems at all, and it has actually grown a decent chunk for me. It's not huge by any means, but I love how full and bushy this one is, and these sort of velvety leaves with the 3 colors on them. So pretty. Final plants on this cabinet are on this back shelf here. The first one being a very well-fed Pinguicula tina. Look at all those fungus gnats it's caught for itself. It's doing so well. This one for a while was looking a little bit raggedy. I think it went into the succulent phase. I mean, I know it went into the succulent phase because some of these older leaves don't have any of the sticky stuff on them, but the newer ones do, and they're catching fungus gnats again. So I think it is a happy camper now. The newest Pinguiculas in my collection, I'm gonna have to put B-roll in because I'm not gonna be able to tip it and show you, but they're in this really cute little Pinguicula pot. They are Pinguicula cyclosecta propagations that I got from someone, and those are purple, which is super exciting if you give them high enough light. So that's why I've put them in the cabinet here, where they're pretty much directly under the Barina, and it can get lots of grow light all day long. And then we've got my tissue culture plants, which are actually growing in quite well for me. This first one is the Alocasia Venom, which is again a wish list plant for me. So I'm super excited to add it into my collection. It's looked like it's putting out a new leaf, so that's exciting. This one is an Alocasia Black Velvet Albo, which I didn't know was a thing. I thought they all were pink variegated, the Black Velvet variegated ones. Apparently not, maybe not, I don't know, maybe that one will grow out into a pink plant, and if it does, I'll just sell it on. And then we've got the Monstera Bulbasaur in here, which isn't very heavily variegated, but it is a little bit, and these are all rooting quite nicely and actually starting to grow, which is super exciting. This is a Syndapsis mayari, aka I think a variegated Argyraeus, but look how cool and beautiful they are. It is so fun. For ages I had this one under a cloche, and then it just kind of got too big, so I moved it into the cabinet, and I think it's loving living in here. You can tell based off of the amount of variegation it's got that it's liking the amount of light it's getting just on this shelf here. And then the last plant in the cabinet is this guy. This is my variegated Alocasia black stem, which was actually a gift given to me by someone, and so I feel very grateful for it. When I originally got it, it had a lovely, beautiful variegated leaf, and then unfortunately the next leaf it gave me was fully non-variegated, so I was like, okay, bit of a shame it lost its variegation, but I mean, I don't mind. I just wanted an Alocasia black stem, full stop. But then the next leaf, look at the variegation on that. It is so beautiful, and I'm just so glad that it was able to bounce back and will hopefully give me more variegated leaves carrying on. This side of the room is a lot more sparse, but I do have some things over here. This guy is my Begonia Maurice, Amy, and Dawn Miller joint pot. And the Dawn Miller has definitely taken over. The Maurice Amy is this tiny little pink one in here. And I got them at the same time as similar sized cuttings. And the Don Miller has just been growing like crazy. I've been able to chop and prop it several times over, whereas the Maurice Amy hasn't been quite as easy for me, and I've not been able to propagate it as well. So the Don Miller's kind of taken over, but I don't mind that too much. And then on this side, I have my Philodendron Majestic, which is a hybrid philodendron of the Varicosum and Soderoy, I believe. And it has these beautiful big heart-shaped leaves with silver spots on it. I've personally found it a lot easier than the Varicosum on its own. In general, I have struggled with that one, and so hybrid philodendrons tend to work better for me. It is desperately in need of a moss pole extension, but it's quite big already, so I think I'll probably have to chop and extend it. Doing so will help give it the support it needs to keep sizing up and producing these big, beautiful leaves. I've also got two massive alocasias in this corner. The first one here is the Alocasia Stingray with its huge, beautiful leaves. Like, look how beautiful that is. It is one of my pride and joys because I grew that one from a corm. It's now in no drainage semi-hydro, and it has been loving that. And it's popped up so many little baby corms in there, which I have been able to share with a bunch of you, which I love. If I move this one, you'll be able to see the alocasia behind it. This is my Alocasia Gaggiana, which has kind of grown like crazy. This alocasia loves the sunlight. It loves getting as much light as possible, and that's why I have always kept it in this window. And I mean, you can see how much it has grown. This is actually a plant that Joe and I had at our wedding, so it has that little bit of sentimental value to us. And I love the sort of big elephant ear leaves it can get. I know it can grow a whole lot bigger and probably a little bit less leggy, but I've got to work with the conditions I have, and this is the best spot for it in my home. So that's it for the living room, but before we move on to the bedroom, I want to show you a couple of plants that I have in my kitchen behind me and my hallway. I have 3 plants living in my kitchen window, and it is a northwest facing window, so it only really gets any direct light during the evening hours in the summer months, but it does get sort of medium to low indirect light for the rest of the day. And that's actually pretty okay for things like my begonia Black Forest here. I have this one sitting in semi-hydro on the kitchen window, and it's just getting exposed to quite a lot of sky for most of the day, which does give it enough to grow. You can see it is still putting out decent sized leaves. It's not like it's going dormant or anything like that. I love this begonia quite a lot. I love how dark the leaves are, and the sort of contrast of the white spots create a really, really beautiful plant. I have also recently chopped the tops off of this one. I prune my begonias fairly regularly because they just grow too fast otherwise. Oddly enough, I also have a cacti and a succulent living in the window. This guy is my variegated euphorbia, and I honestly put this one and the cactus in the window space there because I don't want them to grow. I don't have much more space for a plant this size to get highlight in my home. And so I specifically put those in the window so that they would still get some light, but not as much as they would need to like grow really well. I kind of wanted to stunt their growth a little bit, so it was intentional. You can see it has definitely like sized down a little bit in the top there, which is okay. I'm kind of fine with that. It's kind of the only place I can fit these plants for now. You can see the same thing sort of happening with my blue myrtillo cactus. It has just gone a little bit exfoliated in the time I've had it in that spot, but it's fine. I don't mind. I should also say that I do have some Willow Smart Plant Sensors in these guys because I water them so much less frequently than I do a lot of my other plants that I need to be reminded. Otherwise they would go months and months and months and months and months, like potentially up to 6 months without me watering them. And I think they won't water maybe a little bit more than that. So it's just chilling in here. Both this one and the euphorbia are in cactus and succulent soil, and they've just been pretty chill on the window in there. And then I've got 2 plants living in my hallway here, which don't get really any light at all. I would call it low light, honestly. The first one lives on this table by my door. This one is a combo pot of the Milky Way and my variegated one. And to be honest, it doesn't really grow at all, but that's not surprising given the conditions it's getting. It is not getting any light really, and so I don't expect it to grow. What I do expect it to do, however, is continue living. It has had no problem with that whatsoever. And yes, I do have some brown spots on my variegated one mostly, but I'm pretty sure those were there when I got it or from very early on. Those aren't a result of it sitting in poor conditions. I think the best thing to note when you have plants in low light conditions like this, you're just gonna need to water them a lot less frequently and make sure you're testing the soil with your finger or a soil meter. I could put a willow plant sensor in here just to make sure that it's definitely drying out between waterings. You don't want to water it before it's ready because then you could risk root rot quite easily. And then the other one is my Sansevieria metallica, and it absolutely did not grow this big in this spot. It was this big when I put it here. Again, this is one that hasn't really grown since I've put it here, but it used to be in a spot with very bright grow light on it. And that is when it grew the height that it is now. And I have since put it in a lower light spot because this is where I have space for it. But I don't think it really minds being here. And again, I just make sure that I'm not watering it all that often and it will be absolutely fine. Moving on into the bedroom. This is actually the room where I think the least has changed, at least furniture wise. I can't really put things in different spaces, but I have really filled this room out with as many plants as possible. So let's just get straight in there and I can show you them. I've got a few plants on what I call my dresser here. I have recently rearranged this space and put the Soltec Grove light here, and I think these plants have very much liked it. So this first one is my Alocasia Ninja, which, I mean, pretty impressive, if I do say so myself. It's got kind of 3 different plants in the one pot, and I'm obsessed with these sort of dark, thick, velvety leaves. I think since putting it underneath this grow light, it has grown a whole lot better. All of the new leaves are the sort of more squat ones, whereas before it was in a place with slightly lower light and it got a bit leggier there. Got my variegated Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, and no, it's not very highly variegated, but I actually don't mind that too much. I kind of like it being a little bit more sparse in there, and like the few leaves it does have with the variegation are really nice. I have recently taken some propagations of it, so it's not at its full potential right now, but again, I think this one is very much so benefiting from having the grow light on top of it. And then this last one, same here, the newest leaf. It's not as leggy as the previous ones because it wasn't getting as much light before. This is the Alocasia Antoro Velvet, and it's got these insane velvety soft leaves and purple backs to them. It is a beautiful dark goth plant, and yes, it is a little bit finicky. It's more difficult than a lot of other alocasias I've had. In general, I'm fairly good at alocasias, and this one hasn't been the easiest for me, but I think now that it's getting more light, it is a lot happier. Like all of my other alocasias, it is in semi-hydro, and it actually popped up this tiny little new leaf the other day from a corm that must be underneath the substrate. So things are going really well here now that I've got this new setup, which I do like more. It's less like chaotic than I think the Acrobar was. The Acrobar took up a lot of space, and while yes, these plants take up a lot of space as well, it just feels a bit more intentional than it ever looked with the Acrobar there. On the shelves above, I have my Uncommon Maranta collection, starting off with the Maranta Silver Band. I love these ones so much. I am so glad they are becoming much more readily available at the minute. I think these like big, dark, silvery blue leaves with the veination in there are beautiful and fairly easy to grow as well. Eventually, my plan is to bring all of these Marantas into one joint pot because I think it would look really nice in there. This is the Maranta No ID Cat Mustache, and it's got even more pronounced veination in the leaves, and they're a little bit darker as well. It's not quite as silvery as the silver band, but these two, and too many things to hold, the light veins as well. I think the three of them would look so nice in a mixed pot together, like a trough pot. Imagine that, it would look so nice. Right now they are in soil. Eventually my plan is to pop them into semi-hydro because that's my preferred growing method with Marantas. But for now they are in some soil, and I actually have one of the Willow Smart Plant sensors in this one to kind of cover the bases with all three of these, because in general I'm a chronic underwaterer, so trying to make sure that these stay hydrated enough is top priority, and the little sensor reminding me of that is very helpful. And then again, another plant with a sensor in. This is my joint pot of variegated Syndapsis Jade Satin. So we have some sort of albo variegated in there, as well as some mint variegated. I basically had a bunch of props and I shoved them all together in a single pot because they have essentially the same care and I don't really need multiple pots of them. You'll notice this throughout my collection. Where possible, I have tried to join things together, and it makes things a lot more manageable, and it gives me less like single pots of plant to worry about. And then this last one is my Epipremnum Snow Queen. Basically it's just a very, very highly variegated marble queen, but oh my goodness, it has been the easiest highly variegated plant I think I have ever had, especially since a lot of highly variegated plants need a bit more humidity in order to stay the sort of nice white lightness, and also need quite a lot of light because they don't have as much chlorophyll. This one has just been chillin'. It has been exactly as easy as any other Epipremnum or pothos I've had, and honestly I just think it is so beautiful. It is the perfect thing to sort of cascade off a shelf. I suppose I could put this on a pole and try and get it to grow bigger leaves. Maybe that's a thought. Maybe I can take cuttings and do that in the future. I don't really feel like I need to have a bigger leaf one now, but I think it would be interesting to see how it would mature, because I do love the look of a mature marble queen on a pole. So that is something to think about going forward, but for now, we're just gonna keep this lovely trailing thing. And then we have this huge Syndapsis exotica. This is actually the first plant that I ever put into semi-hydro, which is fun, and I haven't changed its pot since then, and I think that was what, maybe 2020, 2021, and since then it's just been living on the shelf, and it's been trailing down, and then I wind it back up, and then it goes down again and up and down and up, and I just love the way it frames this mirror. I think it adds a little bit of plant whimsy to my day. When I'm sort of getting ready, I can just have the jungle around me, but I'm obsessed with this one, and I never want to cut it because I think it is so big and beautiful and awesome. This is probably the thirstiest plant I have ever experienced. It is my variegated Paleonia repens, and this one needs water all the time. I used to have it in soil and it would get so dry so fast. I was watering it like every other day, which for me as an underwater or low maintenance plant person, it was just a little bit too frequent. So I did eventually decide to move it into semi-hydro, and it's been this way for just over a year now, and it has loved this. It used to be a lot whiter in there. You can see the sort of white variegation. That's when I was growing it in my Millsbow cabinet, and it was right under a grow light. Since it got too big for that spot and I've had to move it outside of the cabinet, it's a bit more sort of minty green on green variegation, which I personally don't mind. Ideally, I would have it grow the beautiful bright white because I like that, but for the time being, because I don't have a better place to put this, it is just hanging in my bedroom and loving life. It's kind of hard to show the magnificence of my Marble Queen pothos in one shot because essentially I have it hanging here attached to my wall, and then with a bunch of like clear little clips, I've attached the vine to go up over the beam on our ceiling here, and it goes all the way across this beam to the other side and back with its lovely sort of dappled variegated leaves. It's one of the first plants I got, and I got it as quite a small plant, and now it is on the larger side for my collection, and it has just withstood so much. It's one of the most forgiving plants in my collection. All of my epipremnums are. They take a bit of a beating because I do end up underwatering them, especially because they are hanging on the wall. I don't know why my mind just doesn't see it as easy to water them, but even though it's not getting much grow light and it only gets a little bit of light from my southwest facing window in here, it has grown so well and is incredibly happy. I've got one of the small vista shelves in this little alcove here, and it's lit by 3 Plant Spectrum 16 mother grow lights and 2 Barinas down the bottom. They're the warmer toned ones. Also kind of hanging in front of it, which I guess I'll talk about first, is my insane fern leaf cactus. I have this one just hanging on a tension rod above the shelves. I find that to be an amazing renter friendly hack. If you have a sort of nook or alcove or something, if you can put a tension rod or a curtain pole in there, then you can hang plants off of it and have extra space, which I find incredibly important. But the fern leaf, it has grown so much for me over the years. It is just one of the most beautiful jungly staples, I think, in my collection. It's an epiphytic cactus, and so it actually prefers the higher humidity of my home, which is generally suited for tropical houseplants. One day I would love to get this one kind of mounted on a wall. You can see it is very much so one-sided, but I think it would look lovely mounted on a wall, sort of cascading down. I don't necessarily have room for that in this flat, but maybe one day in a different home, that could be an option. Just gonna pop that one to the side for a second so you can actually see the things on this shelf. I guess we could start at the top and work our way down. Here we have my mixed pot of Hoya Crimson Queen and Hoya Crimson Princess. Those new leaves coming in there are such bright pink. This is the first Hoya I ever added to my collection. I actually got it as propagations from my cousin's plant, and so it's taken its sweet time to get to this point. I don't think I necessarily have given it the best conditions for its entire life. It used to live in my southwest facing window, and I honestly don't think that it was the best spot for it. So I have since moved it to, I suppose, slightly lower light under a grow light here, and it has grown immediately just so much better. Before I wasn't getting any sort of new growth and the leaves were starting to look a bit pale and it was dropping them. Now she's happy, and my long-term goal for this one is to get it to bloom, though I do know that carnosus in general tend to be quite difficult to get to bloom, so maybe it won't happen for a while. It's been, what, maybe 5-6 years? And it's just taken its sweet time. Given during that time I've not necessarily been the best to it, I think I am doing well for it now. I've also got some propagations up there, but we're just not going to talk about those because I really just want to talk about like full-size plants in my care. And the next one is another lovely Hoya. I actually have 3 Hoyas up on that shelf there. This one is the Hoya Polynura Broge, and it's basically a minty silvery version of the normal fishtail Hoya, and I actually can't believe how much this one has grown as well. I got it as a small cutting, just one branch, and it has branched out itself into these several different segments, which is awesome. I love that Hoyas do this. And one day I'm hoping that I can grow it big enough to pop it into my regular Polynura as well, because I think it would look so nice in like contrast with the dark green leaves of the normal Polynura and these sort of silvery bright leaves. I think that'd be a beautiful combination. The other beautiful silvery one I have up there is my Hoya Nicolense New Guinea Ghost. Again, this is one that I had from a single cutting. I don't know if you can see in there, it's just one single plant that has branched out and branched out and branched out to form this lovely full thing. I probably should get this one on a trellis. Most Hoyas prefer to be trellised or to have something to climb. I have very many times just cut off long tendrils when they just kind of grow and grow runners for a while. I think that might be one of the reasons why it has split so much, because me just pruning it and pruning it has forced it to become bushy and starting growth points off. One of my most sentimental plants is this guy. This is my jade plant, and while jade plants Houseplants aren't my favorite plants out there. I love this one because I grew it from propagations from my mother-in-law's plant, and so it has that sort of sentimental value. I treat this one so poorly. That sounds really bad considering it's a sentimental plant, but I just basically neglect this one, and it has grown really well for me. I think it is happy in this place. It's even propagated itself a couple times down here, and I'm glad that I've been able to grow it to this point. These can also tolerate quite high light as well, which I am not able to give it in my home. I don't have loads of space with high light, so I've just kind of been putting this one where I can fit it in my home, and it's just had to tolerate that a little bit, but I'm not mad at it. I think it's quite cute. I think I've got a lot of Hoyas left over in this space from when I cat-proofed this room for when we got Cosmo. Oh my goodness, nearly a year ago at this point. I think it's maybe been 9 or 10 months, crazy, but Hoyas are a lovely pet safe plant, and so I kind of filled this shelf up with Hoyas originally when he came home because I didn't want him to get into any sort of plants that were toxic, and he never really went for my Hoyas. I think they're too thick-leaved for him. I don't know, but my Hoya obovata is one of the ones I have on this shelf, and it is just so cool. I love these like big round leaves, and they've got little splashes on them. It matches the pot it's in. It is just such a cool one. And this one has the thickest Hoya stems. Even the sort of tendril growing off of it here is thick and like almost woody. So it makes for a very sturdy plant. And this one is one I have on a trellis, which isn't my favorite, but the obovata wouldn't trail down in the same way that I feel like the New Guinea Ghost or the Polyneura would be happy trailing. This one would not be happy doing that, and so having it on a trellis is kind of its only option. Since Cosmo now has free roam of the house, it doesn't really matter if the plants on here are pet safe or not, but this is one of the only spaces I've found that fits my Anthurium warwickwianum. This beautiful leaf is amazing. I am obsessed with this leaf. The rest of the plant has seen better days, and while I don't like the look of these leaves, they are still providing energy for the plant, and so I am not cutting them off quite yet. Eventually, maybe once this one puts out another or 2 new leaves, I can trim these off. I just leave them for now and kind of push that bit to the side. This one is the one that hangs out in the front, and it is just doing so well. I can't believe this one basically saved itself, because for the longest time it did only have these 2 ugly leaves on it. I was so tempted to get rid of it, but then I noticed it was putting out new growth and I just had to keep it. And I'm glad I did, because this leaf is literally perfect, not a scratch or a dent on it, and I can't be mad at it. Also, this Anthurium is one I have in semi-hydro. I do keep some Anthuriums in semi-hydro and some in soil. It kind of just depends. But I find especially this one and the Regal are extremely thirsty when they're putting out new leaves, and having the constant access to water is super beneficial for them. Then we have a Syngonium. This is the only Syngonium I will ever want, potentially ever again. This is the Syngonium chiapense, or chiapense. It is a beautiful big leafed Syngonium. They've got these big heart thick leaves, which a lot of Syngoniums I've had in the past have had very thin leaves, and I think that's caused them to be a little bit more pest prone. I've kind of sworn off of most other Syngoniums, but loads of my patrons and commenters told me that this is a very different Syngonium to the rest, and so far I have found that to be true. I do also have a cutting of the variegated version, which I'm hoping to eventually pop in here as well and put this on a moss pole, because I've heard once these go on a moss pole, you can see it's got aerial roots sticking out along here. It will be the happiest it could possibly be, and it can give me nice big beautiful leaves joined in with the variegated one. Oh, I love a like combo pot of variegated and non-variegated things, so that is going to be a very exciting time. And then the last one on this shelf is my Hoya Crassiopetalata Splash. Yes, that's a mouthful, but I love this one so much. It's got these gorgeous dark leaves with the silver flecks on them. I think this is one of the darkest Hoyas I have, and I just think it is so cool. And again, this is one that's just like branched out and tendrilled nonstop. I've got loads of tendrils here, and I do tend to cut these off as well because I don't need them, but it is also on a trellis. I'm trying to keep it as full as possible and keep it happy. I honestly don't pay attention to these plants this much, but this shelf does have 2 of the mother grow lights on them. So it's getting nice medium high light, and I think it is absolutely loving that. Now let's head down to my begonia shelf. Excuse the cat tree that's in front of it, but this is my begonia shelf. It's under 2 Barina grow lights, and I am currently basically propagating all of my begonias. I cut them all back and I'm starting them all over from propagations because honestly they were getting a little bit big and a little bit leggy and scraggly, and so I wanted to start them over thicker. I don't know how well you can see in there, but this one's already rooted like crazy. This is the Begonia Thurstonii, and it's got these really lovely leathery shiny leaves with the red backs, and I just find it so different to all of my other cane begonias. Pretty much all of my other cane begonias have spots, and this one doesn't. And so I find it a nice contrast to have in next to my other begonias. Probably one of my most prolific growers, and actually one of the few begonias I have that flowers regularly, is my Begonia Simbad. This one personally was looking a bit leggy, and so starting it over from several cuttings in here will be good for it, I think. Oh my goodness, it's also got like new growth growing on under the water. Like, look at that, it's so cool. So I love this one. It is probably the pinkest plant in my collection because these new leaves in here come in extremely pink, especially when they are under grow lights. They come in a bit pinker than I necessarily like. I prefer this one as a more like silvery vibe or like minty green. That's my ideal with it, but if they need to come in a little bit pink and sun-stressed, they can come in pink and sun-stressed. I've actually got 2 in here. I've got a tiny bit of Bipinati Fido, but the main thing in here is the Begonia Sophie Cecile, which is a star-leafed shaped begonia. The leaves have these lovely fingers that sort of branch out, and it just adds like a bit of like harshness in the best way. It makes it like a little bit more gothic, and like compared to the Thurstonii, I feel like that sort of contrast between the round softness and the like bright spikiness with the spots, I think it's a really fun combination. And again, these are all rooting so well. They're probably nearly ready to pot up. And when I do have these pot up, I have them all in semi-hydro substrate. That is the only thing I've been able to grow my cane begonias in because these things are so incredibly thirsty. And so they need the semi-hydro and constant access to water. And then the last one we have here, the fullest, this is the Begonia Coralina de Lucerna, which I cut this plant up because it was just getting too big and I wanted to start it over again. It has these insane big green angel wing shaped leaves with the polka dots on it. It is easily my most forgiving begonia. This one, it was living in my kitchen window for quite a long time, or like pulled back in a room without any grow light, and it still grows like crazy and puts out new big growth, which is awesome. I love a plant that can be super low maintenance. Those are my favorite types of plants. And this one is just, it can be big and beautiful and a statement plant without very much like thought and care. I probably have like 8 or 9 cuttings in this vessel, and they are also rooting in here. So we are very happy with that, and I'm looking forward to eventually planting these all back up again. I'll need to find something else to put on this shelf here. In the meantime, maybe some other sort of propagations or small plants, but for now, these begonia props will live over here. I've only got 2 plants that are living in my window at the moment. The first one being my Hoya carnosa, just the plain normal one. It's got a little bit of splash to it. I have grown this one quite differently than I normally would because I originally grew it on a trellis, but then I put it in a hanging planter, and this is actually an idea that I got from one of my patrons. At least once a year I go through and I ask them to send me pictures of their collections so I can react to them, and I saw that one of them actually did this with their plants, and I thought it looked so cool because it keeps the like verticalness of the plant on the trellis, but it's also a lot easier to hang in my window, and also because it's going up instead of down, Cosmo won't try and get to it. So this is a fantastic, really full one. Honestly, probably the easiest growing Hoya in my collection. And you can see the sort of disco lights that I love, like gracing my room on sunny days. So the other one that I have is also in a disco planter. It is a variegated lipstick plant. I think this is such a cool one, and I really don't see it all that often, but these leaves, people always mistake it for a Hoya because it looks so Hoya-ish. It's such a fun one. This is also one of the easiest growers. Asacanthus in general are super easy to propagate. I'm pretty sure I just propagated this one straight in soil. That's how I've propagated all of my Asacanthus, and they have loved them. Actually, this is the only one I have currently. I did used to have more, but since I did my big sort of clear out, they're ones that I didn't necessarily love as much, but this one I just couldn't bear to part with because I think it's so cool and different, and you really don't see it all that often. And then I have just one kind of plant on my bookshelf here. This is actually where I keep my pingdom. This is something I have recently refreshed. I did get new pings, I think probably, it was in February, yeah. So last month I got some new pings and I made a refreshed pingdom with the new pings in here. I will pop a picture on the screen with what each of the different pings are because I can never remember them off the top of my head. I do love my pings. I think they're so fun. They're a great way to capture fungus gnats if you've got fungus gnats in your home, and they're one of the few plants I have in my collection that bloom. You can see this one back here's got a bloom. This one is starting to bloom right now as well, and it's just a really fun thing because I don't normally like flowers all that much. I'm much more of a foliage gal, but on pings I quite like it, and I love that I can have like 10 different pings in one small pot and just give it care just in this one thing. Also, I should say that I do keep this one extremely moist, and I water it with either distilled water or water from my zero water pitcher, depending what I have on the day. But where possible, you do need to give this one like really clean water. Rainwater would be great as well. I just don't have a rainwater collection system here in our flat. Down here is kind of the only place I can fit such a big plant on a moss pole. This is my Philodendron Glorious, and I have recently done a whole journey behind this one. I've had it for 4 years now, and it has grown incredibly for me. I got it as maybe like a 3-leaf import, and now it's got so many, and the biggest leaves on it are absolutely gigantic. I'm obsessed with its like dark, sort of satiny velvet leaves. It is a hybrid. Philodendron is a hybrid of a Gloriosum and a Melanochrysum, both of which I've tried previously. The Melanochrysum, not the easiest of plants. I was never able to get it to grow well and size up. And the Gloriosum, I did love mine, but I didn't necessarily like its growing pattern. It was a crawler, whereas the Glorious, the hybrid of the two, it is a climber. I've been able to get it to grow up the pole so nicely. It's rooted in there amazingly, and I've really been able to fill it out, and it's actually smaller than it was last week when I did the big chop and extend on it. It was taller than me, which is crazy, and it was so beautiful, but it was time for more space on the moss pole, and so it is looking a little bit smaller than before, but it is still an incredibly beautiful plant. On Joe's bedside table, we have my big Monstera Thai constellation. It has gotten huge, y'all. In these past few years, it has really started booming in growth because it took so long to get started. I've talked in the past about how much this one has struggled with me. When I originally got it, it had a huge bout of root rot, and I basically had to save it from the brink of death. And since then, I have been slowly growing it out and growing it out. And it's finally gotten to the point where it is what I would consider a big plant. It's already started on secondary fenestrations. I can't wait to keep seeing how this one grows. I have it on a moss pole. It is incredibly rooted into that. And funnily enough, I have this one in semi-high semi-hydro as well, which I don't think monsters necessarily need to be in semi-hydro, but this one has loved it. It's loved having access to water all the time, and it doesn't use up the water nearly as fast as something like my anthuriums or my begonias have. So it's nice to have a semi-hydro plant that you can really rely on to be not as thirsty as others. Let me see if I can get this one down, because holy cow. This is a plant that I am genuinely obsessed with. This is my anthurium pallidiflorum, and its longest leaf is over 1 meter in length. It is just so cool. Easily the easiest anthurium I have ever had. It is so chill. It hasn't minded living in this space. It is currently getting grow light on it. I normally have a grow light kind of standing where I am, and it points at this and the Tycon, but it has previously not had grow light on it and been fine. And I mean, I guess we are like 2 meters away from a southwest facing window, but it really doesn't get all that much light, especially here in the UK. It's fairly dark and cloudy most of the year. It's a lovely sunny, partly cloudy day today, and so we're getting lots of nice light, but in general, it's not getting all that much. But this one has grown so well for me, and I did notice the other day that it is putting out a bit of new growth in there, which is super exciting, as well as a flower. I do actually have some pallidiflorum pollen in my freezer from Claire's plant, so hopefully I can pollinate this one with that, and then we could have little pallidiflorum babies that are like both of ours together. How cute would that be? Next to that, I have my Thanksgiving cactus, and this is a white flowering Thanksgiving cactus, and it bloomed for me for the first time this past November-ish time, Thanksgiving-ish time. Similar to my fern leaf, it is a jungle cactus, and so doesn't mind a bit of higher humidity, and in general, it has been fine with not very much light. Then we have my mixed pot of variegated and non-variegated heartleaf philodendron. Mine's not the highest of variegation. It's not particularly bright white in there. I personally don't think I would have the normal heartleaf philodendron on its own without the variegation part in it. I personally feel like it needs the variegation in order to enthrall me personally. It would probably appreciate a little bit more light than it's getting, but it's just fine up there and hasn't really complained or gone downhill at all since I've had it. Got the Anthurium wendlingeri. It's another strappy anthurium, though this one is more of a leathery strap than the velvet of the pallidiflorum. And I've had this one for not nearly as long as the other one, hence why it's not as big, but it is slowly getting there. Every single leaf has been bigger than the last, and so it is a fun one to watch grow. Also, I'm so excited to one day have this one bloom because the inflorescences come in these really cool corkscrews. So I'm holding out hope for one day being able to see that for myself on my own plant, but for the time being, it's just chilling. This is one of the only plants in my collection that I have multiples of. It is the Epipremnum Cebu Blue. It is one of my favorite plants of all time. I'm obsessed with the sort of minty blue-green silver of the leaves. And this one isn't necessarily the biggest, but it is because I gave it a huge chop maybe 3 or 4 months ago, but it is such a full plant. Up top, there are so many different plants in there. I just love having this one trailing. I also have a climbing one, which once they get mature, they grow quite differently climbing. So I like having one of each because it kind of allows me to experience them in both of the ways, which I quite like. This is my Hoya polyneura. I am obsessed with this plant. I'm pretty sure it is one of my favorite Hoyas. I love these sort of fishtail mermaid sort of leaves. Part of that is because of my tattoo here. I got this tattoo as like a fictional plant, and it turns out it looks exactly like the Hoya polyneura. And so it's quite nice to have something that matches it. This particular one was struggling quite a bit earlier this year, dropping a whole heck of a lot of leaves, and I think it was a watering issue, and so that's why I put a willow plant sensor in here to try and really make sure it's getting enough. Now that it's not hanging and it's got the sensor to remind me to water, it's actually getting enough moisture to put out some new growth, which I've only just seen. So I'm super excited that this one is hopefully on the mend and we can keep it growing happy and healthy going forward, because I love this plant so much. This guy up here is extremely difficult to show because it is so big and full. This is my giant uncommon Scindapsus mixed pot. And I'm pretty sure I have like 7 or 8 different types of Scindapsus within this single plant, including my very, very first plant, which isn't uncommon within itself, but the Scindapsus rarest. This specific one was my first plant that I started my whole plant journey with, and so it has a bunch of sentimental value for that. But also in general, I love Scindapsus. They are so easy and forgiving, and they'll tell you when they need water. And I love a silvery plant. I'm just obsessed. Having all of them together in one pot I find really interesting because you can better see the sort of differences in them, and also it's less plants to care for. So this was one of the first plants that I did a big mixed pot of, and it was terrifying at the time because I just felt like something was going to go wrong and I was going to end up losing something or all of them, and that has not been the case at all. It has been extremely happy here, and it's just been such a pleasure to grow and have. And I've chopped this one also loads. This one lives literally over my side of the bed, my pillow, and whenever it gets a little bit too long, I just give it a prune. And sometimes I keep the cuttings, sometimes I give them away as swaps or stuff like that, but sometimes they just go in the bin. All the way at the end here, I have a few small things, one of which is my Hoya globulosa Welsh Mountain Zoo, which this past year put out the most incredible leaf. I'm pretty sure this is the biggest Hoya leaf I have ever had in my collection. It is so, so cool. This is actually the only reptilian-y Hoya I have, and I kind of only accept its reptilianness because it's also fuzzy. They feel almost velvety, which is super weird because a lot of Hoyas are waxy. And this one was living in my Millsbow for quite a long time. It probably was this time last year when I filmed my last tour, but since then I have taken it out of the Millsbow and put it in much lower light. You can see I have a grow light up there, but it's not really pointing at this one in particular, and I think it has liked it a little bit better. It obviously put out this insane leaf. This one, again, very big, not quite as big as the other, but it has been putting out much bigger leaves for me since I took it out of the cabinet, and so I feel like we're in a better place with it now. I've got a Sansevieria up here. This one, it survives on basically nothing. It is my Sansevieria Silver Flame, and I've had it for eons. It's probably one of the earliest plants I've had in my collection, and I haven't put it in any particularly bright spots, and so that's why it's not grown very big. It has stayed quite small, but I kind of like it like that. I kind of use it as a gap filler, which I know sounds really bad, but we all need some gap filler plants and ones that can be super low maintenance. I think I water my Sansevierias maybe once a month maximum. You can see this one is actually a little bit thirsty now. Its leaves are curling, so I should probably hydrate it. But it's just so drought tolerant, and I love the sort of leaf pattern on them with the dark green in the middle and these sort of light green stripes on the outside. That's my favorite sort of Sansevieria. I don't really like the classic mother-in-law's tongue with its yellow. That's not as much my vibe, but any of these sort of dark or silvery ones, I'm obsessed. And then the last one up here, oh my goodness, it's flowering at the minute. That's exciting. This is fantastic. So this here is a Dracaena, which technically Sansevierias are also Dracaenas, but this is a different type of Dracaena. This is a Dracaena Godseffiana Silver. It's fairly new to my collection. I think I only got it sort of late summer last year, but once I saw it, I was obsessed because look at these lovely, shiny, variegated little leaves. It doesn't even look like a Dracaena almost, in my opinion. I just think it is so, so cool. And even the ones with less sort of variegation on them are incredibly beautiful. But this bloom, oh my goodness. How cool is that? It is so weird and wonderful. Again, super low maintenance, getting the tiniest bit of grow light kind of as a reflection from that one. That's a Grow Gang Pianta, the small one, which is quite bright, and it's kind of pointed at my ceiling, so it kind of reflects off and bounces to as many plants up there as possible. But it's getting a tiny bit of grow light from that, but for the most part, it's just chilling on its own. Dracaena in general tend to be very low maintenance, low light needs. Obviously, you'd probably like something a little bit brighter, but it's fine where it is. On my bedside table, I have the bottom cutting of my Anthurium regale. This is, as you can see, in semi-hydro, no drainage, and it does have a quite big leaf on here that's grown from a new growth point. It's a little bit sad because it did used to be a really big, beautiful, magnificent plant, but it was getting a bit too big for the space that I have, and so I did decide to chop it up, I think last year it must have been, and prop the top and the bottom separately, and then I can bring them together eventually. It used to have leaves like big. Unfortunately, a lot of them were growing super like crispy and brown. I think I had a lot of watering issues when it came to my regale, because this one is the thirstiest freaking plant ever when it's putting out new leaves. It would go dry so frequently, and I just didn't have the ability to like water it fast enough, and it did cause a lot of these sort of issues in the leaves. And Anthurium leaves in general, when they are growing in, they are extremely fragile, and so any sort of small thing and it can cause them to rip. And then even once they're grown out, they can have like ugly brown spots quite easily. It is something I'm currently combating with CalMag, so hopefully in the future, when I do have this one kind of back up in its like sort of tip-top shape, I will not have as many brown spots on it, and it can be a really nice, big, beautiful regale. And then finally, we have the office. This is the other room that has drastically changed in our rearrange, and there are far fewer plants in here than there used to be. But I've created a really nice highlight zone area here for some plants that really like that extra highlight. This whole section is covered by 2 sets of grow lights in order to get them the amount of light that a lot of these plants want. The pendant back here is the Soltec Aspect, and then in this lamp I have 3 Grow Gang Pianta small bulbs, and that just allows these plants to get quite a lot of very bright light in the day. Normally these grow lights are on for like 12 plus hours a day, but I've turned them off for filming because it makes it just a little bit easier. The first one in here is my variegated banana plant, and it's definitely seen better days. It really did not like the transition from being in my cabinet, which was a lower light space, to being taken out and being put under bright light. It definitely got some sunburn in there, but since then it has grown 3 new perfect leaves in here, and so I know that it is in a better place, and it is hella rooting in the pot here. I think it being in no drainage has really helped as well, because they're thirsty, and so I want to make sure it's getting enough moisture. A little guy that's actually quite new to my collection is my variegated jade plant. Look how cute this thing is. I managed to find this at a random garden center for £2, and it's been one that's been on my radar and like somewhat wish list for quite a while now, so I just had to add it to my collection. I've not had it for very long, so I can't say much more than that, but I am really excited to watch it grow. One of the bigger plants in this zone, and actually a really quick growing plant for me, has been my Euphorbia lacti ghost. Oh my goodness, look at this thing. It is crazy. When I originally got it, it was like there, and it's been maybe 18 months since, and it has just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. It has been in fairly high light in my collection, previously under Grow Gang bulbs, and it is just growing really nicely for me. You can see it has really lovely, bright, fully white spots, and then some bits that are a little bit greener in there. I do quite like the mix of the white and green. I think it makes for a very beautiful plant. Another little euphorbia. This one is so much smaller. I don't remember the exact name of this one, but it'll go on the screen. It is a little variegated one, and it's so stinking cute. I love the little stripes on it. And this one has taken its sweet time, but it does look like it is starting to put out some new growth in there. So I'm very excited for it. It's actually the only plant I have in a terracotta pot, and that's just because this is what it came in. Maybe I'll switch it over at some point. It hasn't been quite as fast growing as I've noticed my lactees are, so we'll see what happens with that one. But oh my god, I love this side. Look at that half moon variegation on there. It is so cool. A big boy back here, pretty much directly under the grow light, and I think absolutely loving it, is my Ficus Shavariana Moonshine. And ha ha ha, look at this thing. It has gotten so big, and I'm pretty sure since I put it underneath this grow light here, it has been living its best life and putting out new growth constantly. And this one only started growing well for me since I put it into semi-hydro. Before that, I was always growing my ficuses in soil, and I think they're way thirstier than I thought they were. And so since putting them into semi-hydro and making sure they have constant access to water, they've been doing a whole heck of a lot better. This one as well, oh my goodness, it's popping out new growth, thank goodness. So I did recently chop the top off of my Ficus elastica taniki, and it does look like it's getting some new growth in there, so that is extremely exciting. But I need to show you the roots on this one. Look at all of those in there. They are just growing constantly. It's so fully rooted, and it loves the semi-hydro life and the no drainage life. And it was growing so slow for so long until I put it in semi-hydro and under some very bright light. And since then, you can really see the size up in growth in this one. This little guy is my variegated fiddle leaf fig, the first fiddle leaf fig I have ever had, and it's doing really well. And I do have to attribute that to, again, the smart plant sensors. Because this was my first fiddle leaf fig, I was really concerned that I wasn't going to be able to get the watering and the light right, but having this sensor in here really helps me not have to worry and stress about that. I just water it when it notifies me, and it has been very happy for me with that. It's put out some new leaves for me in the time I've had it, so I think it is a happy camper in here. And then the last one in the top section up here is my other Euphorbia lactee, who has also just grown incredibly for me. I got this one in May last year, and it was this tall, and it just has grown all of this since. It just grows so much, and it makes me really happy to see. And then I've got 3.5 plants on the lower litter box here. The one in front here is my big Alocasia dragon scale, and I had no idea the dragon scales could get this big. I thought because it was a jewel Alocasia they would stay quite small, but I'm incredibly proud of where I have gotten this one. It is so big and beautiful, and the leaves genuinely look like dragon scales. It's so aptly named. Next to it, we've got my Begonia Arabian Sunset, another one of my dark goth plants, and this one has been one of the craziest begonias I've ever had. It grows so much so fast. It's extremely prolific, and I've never had any sort of issues with it. I restarted this one from cuttings after my old one got way too big, and I really enjoyed sharing the love of all of the spare cuttings I had, so I think a lot of you actually have pieces of this plant, which makes me really happy. And since it's directly in front of a grow light, it has grown a lot bigger in its leaf size than previously, and I'm really enjoying that change. The final plant here is actually a mixed pot of two of my Alocasias. One of them is my Alocasia tanderusa with its gigantic frickin' leaves, and the other is my Alocasia branchifolia pink passion. And I joined these together in one pot because they were both a little bit sparse as plants on their own, and they're both very like tall stemmed Alocasias, and I just thought it would look nicer if they were in a slightly like more filled pot, because they are also both quite like loby. There's lots of gaps and negative space in their leaves, which I think is beautiful, but I think the combination in there looks really nice. Unfortunately, I think the grow lights are a little bit too bright for this one. It's looking a little bit sun bleached, sunburnt in here, which sucks a bit, but you know what? it'll live and it'll learn and hopefully maybe adapt to the slightly brighter situation that it's currently in. I've got a few plants that are quite tight in this corner here, so I'll make sure to put in lots of B-roll when I'm talking about them. But they are covered by this Mother Light Spectrum grow light because they don't really get that much sunlight. They get a little bit in the afternoon because they are so close to the window, but not hugely. The one on the windowsill here, this guy is a Philodendron ernestii. It's not a very common philodendron in my experience. I haven't really seen them for sale or around all that much, and it's definitely seen better days. I've got some ripped leaves down here. I think this one on the bottom is planning on coming off sometime soon. This one does take a little bit of a beating because Cosmo likes to sit in front of the window, hiding in this plant essentially, while he like chitters at birds and bugs and stuff. And so every now and then it will get knocked a little bit, but otherwise it's really happy and it seems like it's growing really well into this moss pole. Deep in the corner there, I have my Philodendron Splendid, and this one has been a lot of time in the making. I think I got my Splendid as like a 1 or 2 leaf cutting a long time ago, and I have slowly chopped and extended and filled out this pole to the point where it's got many different stems growing up it, which is my preferred way to grow like climbing philodendrons. I think they look so nice when there's lots of leaves in there, and I think I've finally gotten to the point where the leaves are starting to size up. This is another hybrid philodendron. It's a hybrid of the Verrucosum and the Melanochrysum, both of which I've spoken about earlier in this video when I was talking about other hybrids. They're ones that I cannot grow on their own, but as soon as you hybridize them, it becomes the absolute perfect plant for me, and it has been a really easy, chill philodendron. Those like dark velvety heart-shaped leaves are just spectacular. I'm so glad I have this one, and I can't wait to see it get bigger. And then next, we have my second Cebu Blue, the one on the moss pole, and this one's just doing all right. I have been trying for years to grow this one up a pole to get it to the point where it matures and fenestrates. I haven't been doing the best job. There's been several points where I have just neglected all of my moss poles, and this one I think has been very sensitive to that, and it's caused it to stop sizing up. And so now in 2026, I'm finally getting back on track with my moss poles, making sure they're hydrated and that the moss is topped up enough, and then they actually have pole to climb. And I'm hoping that that helps with this one a lot. Also in the window, I have another big alocasia. It's gonna be kind of hard to show y'all, but this is my Alocasia portadora, and I grew this from corms from Claire's plant, and this has been one of the fastest sizing up alocasias ever. I'm pretty sure in the first 6 months I had it, it grew from corm to leaves about this big very fast. But unfortunately during that time it was in the like 1 or 2 leaf club. It never really had more than that. And so now finally we're getting to the point where it has quite large leaves, but more than one of them, which is super exciting. This one has actually just popped out this new leaf at the minute, which is brand new, and I'm sure will size up more once it kind of gets a little bit taller. But this one is now sitting in my southwest facing window in a fairly bright spot, and I think it is loving that. This is another alocasia that loves quite high light, so I think it's currently in the best place it could possibly be. And then the last plant, the one that I've put in the furthest darkest corner of my flat, is my cast iron plant. And this is actually a mixed pot of the 3 different types of cast iron plants that I have. It's got the normal green kind, the Milky Way, and a little bit of the like stripy variegated one, though it isn't very highly variegated. But I love having the mixed pot of this because on their own, they do grow quite slowly, and it takes its sweet time in putting out new leaves. But I think a big chunk of that is because I do put it in darker corners. It's one of the few plants in my collection that can actually still grow in a darker corner, and so it's perfectly fine being here. It can also tolerate a huge range in temperatures and humidity. It's pet safe. It makes for, I think, one of the most perfect plants, and I will never not have a cast iron plant in my collection because I love this one so much. So there we go. Those are all of the houseplants in my entire collection. There were so many. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment if there's anything else you'd like to see from me. If you want more on any of the plants in this video, let me know, and I've either made a video already or I can make one in the future, so pop it down below in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!